last time we have discussed about the hematological aspects of the canine blood samples. Today we are discussing the canine serum biochemistry and its interpretation. Before going for that, I would like to give answer of last one question that has been raised during last session regarding the blood transfusion. So I was talking about the blood transfusion bags, not about the blood. Human blood bag. We are taking blood, empty blood collection bags from the human centers. Nowadays, we are having our own veterinary bags with us. So that was the answer for that. So please don't misunderstand that human blood can be used in the large animal practice. It's not. Only the empty blood bag containing the solution for the anticoagulant solutions that has been used from the human labs, and there is no role of any human blood in the transfusion in case of the animals. Okay, so from this we'll start with the serum biochemistry and its interpretation. Now Omega Laboratory is working in field since last 14 years. Till then we have completed about more than 2.5 lakhs blood sample examinations and more than 13,500 postmortems of the diagnostic type postmortems. We have collaboration with the multinationals and national companies, pharmaceutical companies, and we are conducting so many efficacy trials up till now. Okay, now serum biochemistry panel. So the liver function test, heart function test, pancreatic functions test, kidney function test, and the thyroid function test. These are the routine function tests we are doing for our pets, and whenever any patient presented to us, we are thinking of this type of test, and the indication that we already know that which samples or in which condition we have to send the sample for the liver function, kidney function, heart function, or the thyroid function. So likewise, we are discussing all these parameters or panels of the serum biochemistry and its interpretation, how to interpret the individual reports. Now, the clinical signs of the liver dysfunction. We will start with the liver function test. So the clinical signs of the liver function. So these are the, we can say, indications for the sending samples for the conducting the different liver functions. Now the common signs includes the poor appetite, weight loss is there, jaundice is there. So that can be assessed by the observation of the skin and mucous membranes. Then increased thirst, the animal or the dogs are drinking more water. Sometimes there is a omission, sometimes diarrhea, change in behavior that can be observed in case of the severe hepatic damage. So we are calling it as a hepatic encephalopathy. Then excessive drooling is there, and these are the common clinical signs that can be observed under the liver dysfunction. Now after that, there is a panel of the different tests which are suited for the identification of the different dysfunction of the liver. So that includes the bilirubin, estimation of bilirubin, then SGPT, SGOT, alkaline phosphatase, then lactic dehydrogenase, sorbitol dehydrogenase, then glutamic dehydrogenase, and bromosulfalin excretion test. Beyond that, cholesterol, total serum protein, albumin, globulin, prothrombin, then urea, nitrogen, blood ammonia, uric acid. So these all can be considered. Now looking towards the jaundice or bilirubin. So these are the different parameters having the different its significance in different types of conditions. Now here if you see the color of mucous membranes, if there is a hemolytic jaundice, no doubt there are different types of jaundice: hemolytic jaundice, toxic jaundice, and obstructive jaundice. So what are the different signs and the different observations that we are observing during these three types of jaundice? We can see each and every aspect of that. Now color of tissue and mucous membranes in case of hemolytic jaundice will be slight to moderate yellow. The same is with the toxic jaundice, and it is intensely yellow in case of the obstructive jaundice. Then color of plasma, slight to moderate yellow. Then in case of toxic jaundice, it's the same. Then in case of obstructive jaundice, the color of plasma is extensively yellow in color. Then color of feces, the intense yellow. Then toxic jaundice, they are normal feces. And in case of obstructive jaundice, there is a presence of gray or clay type of color of the feces. Then consistency of feces is normal in the both toxic and hemolytic jaundice, whereas in case of obstructive jaundice, it is quite oily and greasy. Then color of urine, it's light yellow in case of hemolytic, then the intense yellow in toxic and very intense yellow in case of the obstructive jaundice. Then icteric index will be low to moderate in case of hemolytic, moderate in toxic and very high in obstructive type of jaundice. Then if the Vandenberg test has been carried out, so you will get indirect Vandenberg test positive in case of hemolytic anemia, wherever it is biphasic in toxic type of jaundice, and in case of obstructive jaundice, it is directly. So these are the different categories of the bilirubin estimation and its interpretation and different parameters that we are using for the clinical observation of the patients. Now ICTRES, if you see the mucous membranes, you could get the yellow discoloration of the mucous membranes because the bilirubin is having very much affinity towards the connective tissue, especially the connective tissue fibers. Now, the another clinical signs that can be observed in case of liver dysfunction is ascites. So there is a enlargement of belly due to the accumulation of fluids, ascitic fluid. Now here I could give one case study, so for the better understanding. So in that case, or the already shown one case over here. So in that case, there was hemoglobin 4.6 and the other parameters. You can see that it's typically anemia is there, and the infective agents or the causative factors were Ehrlichia canis and Babesia both together were there. There was severe anemia, liver and kidney dysfunction were there. Coagulation defects were there, and you can see the different parameters of the liver. The total protein was 4.19, albumin was 1.66, then the globulin, SGPT was higher, it is 92 IU per liter, SGOT was high, alkaline phosphatase was high, bilirubin was 1.67, creatinine was 2.2, and BUN was 29. So collectively all these parameters leads to the extensive damage to the liver as well as the little damage to the kidney. So collectively that lead to the liver dysfunction, and there is an accumulation of the fluid. Because of that, there is a change in the osmotic pressure, and that lead to the ascites in such patients. Now if you see the color of plasma, so once you collect the blood, you can see the different colors of plasma. So intense color plasma, little bit reddish is there, a little bit less intense, so little bit hemolytic. Again the chylomicrons are there. If you collect the blood just after the meal, 30 minutes after giving meal, so you may get the whitish opaque type of plasma. So these are the animals. Now starting with SGPT, it is increase in hepatic cell damage. Wherever there is a hepatic cell damage, it can be observed in the circulation, and it will be come into the blood by increased permeability of the hepatocytes. The material or the etiological factors which lead to change the permeability of the hepatocytes will lead to the leakage of SGPT into the circulation, and we are identifying that SGPT as a marker or one of the tool for the identification of the different function or different dysfunction of the liver. Then another factors which can lead to the increased SGPT is the passive congestion, the chronic venous congestion, and cardiac problems. So say for example, the valvular insufficiency, there is accumulation of fluid, then the chronic pericarditis. In all these conditions, chronic venous congestion can be possible. Then the fatty liver due to the diabetes mellitus, then hypoxia, toxic hepatitis, leptospirosis, infectious canine hepatitis, hepatic neoplasma, then use of steroids, use of estrogens, then the long-standing use of the chloramphenicol, ampicillin, gentamicin, lincomycin, salicylates. So all these conditions will lead to the increase in the SGPT values in the bloods or the serum. Then SGOT. SGOT values are also increased in case of the acute liver damage, necrosis, and metastatic type of tumors. Whenever if the tumor is there in mammary gland, it may get metastatized into the liver, sometime in the lungs. So in such cases, there is an increase in SGOT. Then whenever there is a muscular dysfunction, it's not only liver, whenever there is a muscular dysfunction and ischemic necrosis of the muscles, in that condition also there is an increase in the SGOT values in the blood. Then myocardial degeneration and necrosis, metastatic tumors anywhere in the body will lead to the increase in SGOT values. Then drugs, we have already mentioned the same type of drugs, they are responsible for the increase in the SGOT in the blood. Then anesthesia will also increase the SGOT. Then alkaline phosphatase, it is basically observed increase as alkaline phosphatase levels because of the osteolytic disorders. Whenever there is any problem with the osteoclast activity that lead to the osteolysis, then the healing of bone, in that condition there is an increase in the alkaline phosphatase level. Then hepatobiliary diseases, basically whenever there is a cholangitis, in that condition, or the obstruction, in such type of conditions there is an increase in alkaline phosphatase. Biliary obstructions, intrahepatic or extrahepatic cholestasis. Then mild to moderate passive congestion of the liver, hepatic necrosis, fatty liver, metastatic tumors, the space occupying lesions like a mild fibrosis and amyloidosis of the liver. See, all these conditions will lead to the increase in the alkaline phosphatase level in the serum. Now lactic dehydrogenase, it is considered as one of the specific type of enzymes that can be helpful for the diagnosis of the liver disease. Hepatocellular necrosis, muscle necrosis, renal necrosis, pancreatic necrosis, and leukemia. In all these conditions, lactate dehydrogenase can be increased. But amongst that, the LDH M5, there are different classes of LDH are there. So amongst that, M5 class of the LDH is a little bit hepatocellular specific, and we can say that it is specific. LDH M5 is specific for the liver damage. Then sorbitol dehydrogenase, it's quite liver specific, and it can be observed in case of the cirrhosis and obstructive jaundice. Whenever there is a cirrhosis and obstructive jaundice, there is an increase in the SDS values in the blood circulation. Then GLDS, glutamic dehydrogenase. So this is also the liver specific, but the availability of the kit of this is quite not simple. That's why in our routine checkup we are not getting GLDH. Then this is also the important factor or the important enzymes that can, or the excretion we can say, the BSP excretion, the bromosulfalin excretion test. So parenchymal, it is increase in the parenchymal hepatic disease, fatty liver, cirrhosis, toxic hepatic injuries, the bile duct obstructions, congestive disorders, neoplasm, and metastatic type of tumor. So in all these conditions, there is an increase in the BSP values in the blood circulation. Then total protein will be decreased in case of the liver dysfunction. Then albumin is also decreased, and there is a change in the ratio of the albumin and globulin. Now relative increase in canine liver diseases, we can see the albumin, different enzymes and its conditions, and which get increased, which get decreased, or which remain unchanged. So if the condition called as passive congestion, SGOT will be or may not be increased. SGPT will be increased because of the passive congestion. Alkaline phosphatase will be increased little bit by passive congestion, and BSP also increased little bit by the passive congestion. The fatty changes may lead to the increase in all values. You can see the +1. This is a little bit change in the all these values, SGPT, SGOT, alkaline phosphatase, BSP, all these can be changed or increased by the fatty changes. Then necrosis of hepatocytes will increase. You can see the SGPT is increased highly. So it is considered as one of the specific enzymes for the hepatic injury. Then the SGOT, then alkaline phosphatase, and BSP. So BSP and SGPT will be considered as the one of the important factor for the identification of the necrosis of the liver. Then biliary obstruction will show alkaline phosphatase and BSP will be more in that case. Then differentiation of the acute and chronic liver dysfunction. So here we can see some criteria are there. So SGPT, in case of cirrhosis, there is a slight to normal to slight increase, but in case of hepatocellular injury, there is an increase in a SGPT. Then bromosulfalin clearance, it is increase in cirrhosis as well as increase in the hepatocellular injuries. Albumin will be low in case of cirrhosis, but in case of hepatocellular injury, there will be the normal at the initial stage of the hepatocellular injury. Albumin levels will be normal in that particular patient. Now here are some of the pictures of the different conditions of the liver. You can see the infectious canine hepatitis. You can see there is a enlargement of the liver, multifocal necrosis is there. Then another, you can see some of the hemorrhagic type of syndromes can be observed in the intestines. So ICH, and if you go microscopic of the same thing, you will get the intranuclear inclusion bodies and margination of chromatin somewhere into the hepatocytes. Now, many times along with our clinical examination, we are observing the USG of the different animals. So here I am giving comparison of both the things. So clinically, we are observing the animal is having the nervous signs, animal is having the omission, diarrhea is there, vomiting is there, diarrhea is there, and along with that, if you go for the USG examination, you will get the different kinds of alterations into the liver parenchyma. You can see there is the presence of depression over here, and the same picture you can see over here. There is a dilated blood vessels and necrosis can be observed, along with some of the gas bubbles are formed around that. So here you can see such type of the material or the observations into the USG. Now some of the neoplasia, many times we are treating the case of dog for the longer period, but till there is a persistent disease conditions are remain, animal is not become taking food in spite of giving large number of treatments of the different kinds of antibiotics, medicines. So in that case, we are referring such case for the USG. So after USG, you can see the different irregular type of areas, and the same type of irregular areas you can observe into the liver parenchyma. So these are some of the cholangiocellular carcinomas. They are look like an umbrella type of things. So you can see the round structures are present over here. So these are the cholangiocellular carcinomas. That there are multiple type of neoplasia can be observed into the bile ducts or the bile canals. Then liver abscess is another factors which can lead to the liver dysfunction. So you can see the dimensions, the multiple or the larger areas is occupied by the abscess, and the same thing is given over here. You can see the large abscess is present in the hepatic lobe, and that can be diagnosed by the USG only. Means we are getting the elevated levels of the different enzymes, but we are not able to find out the actual cause of the which is the actual etiological factor for that. So along with the SGPT, SGOT, the different serum enzymes, we should go for the USG examination or exploratory laparotomy. You may I will suggest in such type of conditions. Then the another conditions usually observed is the bile stasis. So you can see there is a dilatation of the gallbladder, and here you can see the distended gallbladder is present over here. So these are the things generally lead to the increased bilirubin level, the increase in the alkaline phosphatase level. And though we are not able to identify the conditions by just looking towards the gross or the live animal, sometimes we should go for the USG, and the exploratory laparotomy will be helpful for identification or treatment of such type of conditions. Then sometimes there is an obstruction to the gallbladder. So this is some of the parameters, some of the growth, or it's a cystic type of growth, or the cauliflower, not cauliflower, it's an irregular type of growth can be observed into the gallbladder. So that lead to the obstruction to the bile flow and lead to the jaundice. So the USG, our clinical examination plus enzymes, so all three things should be together, and we will give the better result to the animal. Then sometimes the cholecystitis is there because of this infection like the E. coli, salmonellosis. There may be the fibrinous type of inflammation. Sometimes mycoplasma may lead to this such type of inflammations into the gallbladder. So the fibrinous type of inflammation, it's called as a cholangiocystitis. So this can be observed in case of the dogs because of the Salmonella, E. coli, and sometimes it's a mycoplasmal infections. Then early cirrhosis and biliary obstructions. You can see there is extensive enlargement of the gallbladder. Then if you see this particular portion of the liver, lobe of liver, it's having the early stage of cirrhosis. Unfortunately, these animals were died in spite of the giving good treatment. So the thing is that the more toxic things may get accumulated, and we are not able to cope up with all the extreme pathology into the animal's body. Then cirrhosis will be look like this. The connective tissue fibers are developed into the interlobular septa or within the sinusoidal space that lead to the cirrhosis. The next case I will say give over here. So it's having a typical type of liver dysfunction, though you can see the hemoglobin level is much more. So 12.4 is normal hemoglobin level. So all these parameters are looking normal. So hemoglobin is within the range. RBCs are within the range. Packed cell volume within the range. Then the lymphocyte neutrophils little bit higher inside. But if you see towards the biochemistry of the same patient, so total protein count was 3.74. The total protein count was 3.74. It's very, very less. Albumin was 1.1. Globulin was 1.14, means because it's the ratio has been changed. Then SGPT was high, the SGOT was high, alkaline phosphatase was high, bilirubin was 1.4. Then creatinine 0.6 and BUN was 2.1. Glucose was 44. Now this case was showing typical sign of the nervous imbalance. The case has not taken water since last 2 to 3 days, and because of that hemoconcentration was there. Then beyond that, if you see towards the protein levels, it's very quite less protein level. And if you see the glucose, because the glucose metabolism is completely hampered in such cases, and that leads to the hypoglycemia. And this typically this is the typical picture of the hepatic encephalopathy. Whenever there is a hepatic encephalopathy, you can see the different values are increased. Then there is a decrease in the glucose level. Specifically, whenever there is a decrease in glucose level, it is one of the indication of the hepatic encephalopathy. So less glucose, increase in the SGPT, SGOT, then the bilirubins are high. So all these conditions may lead to the hepatic encephalopathy, and such type of patients are very critical and very difficult to treat such type of cases. Now, why there is a need of giving some hepatoprotective drugs to the animals. So here different parameters or the different conditions has been given. So that lead to the stress over the liver, and to avoid the stress over the liver, we must give the hepatoprotective drugs, because the daily we are giving the meals which though that meal is having the of the branded things, then some things we are giving that we are commonly sharing with the animals. So whatever food we have, just many times the same food has been given to the animals. So maybe a small quantity of the toxins, then the small quantity of the toxins may enter into the body of the animals. Then the some drugs are there, chemicals are there, minute quantities of the different chemicals are there. So all these things lead to the liver depression or the dysfunction, and because of the dysfunction of the liver, we need to give the liver protective drugs on the regular basis, or as per the schedule by our physicians, or means not physicians, we can say we are the physicians. So we should give drugs, or we should prescribe the drugs which can protect the liver. So it's necessary to give hepatoprotective drugs, because the food habit of the dog is quite similar to the food habit of the human being. So as we are exposed to the many xenobiotics or the chemicals, in the same environment our dogs are present. So that's why we should provide the hepatoprotective drugs to the dogs also. Now here I give puzzle. So I will request all of you to give answer of this puzzle at the last, or you can write the answer of this puzzle at the at last, or you can ask question to me or give answer of this puzzle. So puzzle is that the dog is having persistent vomiting without ingesta. So eating was okay, there was a normal eating, but after completion of eating or digestion of food, the animal start vomiting. Then since last 20 days there was vomiting. Then this female was non-pregnant. There is no any pyometra, no melena was there. Then all blood parameters were normal, slightly hypochloremia is there because of the vomition, that's all. Then liver and kidney functions were normal, but till there was the vomiting or continuous vomiting was there. So just think over it and try to give answer at last. Now clinical signs of the after liver dysfunction, will shift ourselves towards the pancreatic dysfunctions. So the different clinical signs of pancreatic dysfunctions are the abdominal pain, arching back, then back pain, vomiting, diarrhea, difficult breathing, restlessness, dehydration, and anorexia. So these are the common type of pancreatic problems, or the common type of clinical signs can be observed in the pancreatic dysfunction. So the serum biochemistry definitely will help us to identify this is the pancreatic damage. Now pancreatic function test includes serum amylase. Serum amylase will be increased in case of the pancreatic necrosis, acute pancreatitis, intestinal obstruction, renal insufficiency, blood urea nitrogen. If it is increased simultaneously, then so amylase and BUN, if they increase simultaneously, then we can say that this is the renal dysfunction also. Then pre-renal uremia, hypovolemic shock, parotid gland diseases. Diseases of the parotid gland may be the adenoma, maybe adenocarcinoma. In that conditions, there is an increase in the serum amylase levels. Then serum lipase levels, they are also increased by the same type of etiological factors or same type of the factors. Then calcium will be decreased in case of the pancreatic disease due to the saponification. So whenever there is a acute pancreatitis or the acute leakage of the enzymes around the pancreas, there is a sequestration of calcium from the blood, and there is a formation of soap, or the saponification is there because of the fat necrosis, because of the enzymes, or we can say the lipase enzymes. So because of that, there is a decrease in a total calcium level in case of the blood. Then glucose, the glucose will be increased in case of the diabetes mellitus and decrease in a hyperinsulinemia, tumor of pancreas. Whenever there is a tumor, any tumor of the pancreas, that lead to the increase in a insulin volume or the insulin concentration, and that lead to the increase in the glucose level in diabetes mellitus, and decrease in case of the hyperinsulinemia. So whenever there is an increase in insulin, definitely the more uptake of the glucose is there, and collectively that lead to the decrease in the glucose level. Then insulin is another factor which can be considered as a pancreatic function test. Decrease in case of diabetes mellitus and increase in the pancreatic tumor, that we have already discussed. So increase insulin in tumors and decrease in the diabetes mellitus. Now these are some of the conditions, the pancreatic abscess and the saponification. If you see, the pancreas is present over here, and around the pancreas you can see the small abscess are developed, and along with that the white color material is nothing but the saponification of the calcium and the fat together. The microscopic picture of the same thing. Here again the same picture of the saponification. You can see the all pancreatic fat is converted into the lard-like structure of the hard type of mass because of the accumulation of calcium, and this lead to the hypocalcemia in such patients. Then pancreatic fibrosis, that may lead to the diabetes mellitus in most of the cases. The cancers or the adenoma of the pancreas may lead to the increased insulin level, and that lead to the hypoglycemia later on. Adenoma will be look like this in picture. Then diabetes mellitus, the cells which are secreting insulin are get lost. So this is the islets of Langerhans, and you can see the cells are absent over here. So whole areas is covered by the some of the connective tissue, and the empty space or the just only the stroma is there. So such type of diabetes mellitus, such type of conditions can be observed in diabetes mellitus. Now after that, the pancreas, we can see the different functions, dysfunction of the heart. Now what are the different clinical signs of the heart dysfunction? So the animal tired. So if animal, the owner is present or the living in the third floor, the animal will not able to go up to the third floor by the just with the steps. Then panting or the collapse. If you give the force type of exercise to the animals, definitely the animal may collapse. Then reduce ability to exercise. Animal will not give will not do exercise anymore. Breathing difficulties are there because of them. There may be the enlargement of heart, or maybe the accumulation of fluid into the thoracic cavity, accumulation of fluid into the pericardial sacs that lead to the breathing difficulties. Then frequent coughing. So once there is a accumulation of fluid in thoracic cavity, ultimately there could be the formation of lung edema, and because of lung edema, there is a churning of air and the formation of some of the froth into the bronchus, and because of that froth, there is a coughing type of symptoms can be observed in the dogs. Then reduce appetite because of there is a release of more concentration of interleukins throughout the body, and that lead to the reduction in appetite. Then the weight loss is there because of the same reason, the release of the interleukins and increase in the gluconeogenesis, and there is a change in the glucose metabolism, and that lead to the wasting and once wasting is start. So we are saying that the gluconeogenesis starts. So whatever the depots of the fat, they get utilized, and they collectively that lead to the decrease in the body weight. Then abdominal swelling could be observed. Once there is a retention of fluid into the abdominal, into the body cavities, there is a swelling of abdomen. Then partial paralysis may be observed because of the same type of reasons, or sometimes there may be the formation of thrombus along with this. Then these are some of the clinical signs. Those are indication of the heart dysfunction in case of the animals, or the in case of dogs. Now there are different heart function tests are available. So one is the protein, the plasma protein concentration, and the estimation of the ascitic protein concentration for the identification of different conditions. So here the proteins to be estimated to know the various conditions caused due to the congestive heart failure and other related pathologies. Once there is a congestive heart failure is there is a retention of fluid or the blood into the various aspects of the various body cavities, and that lead to the retention and lead to the edema formation into the body cavities. So here we have to identify the concentration of protein in ascitic fluid and concentration of the protein in the plasma or the serum. Then SGOT, we have already discussed. Whenever there is an increase in SGOT, it is an indication of there is a degeneration or necrosis of the muscles, including the myocardial muscles. Now, how the protein should be estimated? Here the different conditions are there. Whenever there is a heart failure by the mitral valve insufficiency and myocardial disease, the plasma protein will be remain about 4.8, and ascitic fluid will be having about 3 gram percent. Whenever there is a heartworm disease, the plasma protein will be about 6 gram percent, and the ascitic fluid may have the 3.8 gram percent, at around 3.8 gram percent of the ascitic fluid. Then whenever there is a cirrhosis of liver, the plasma proteins will remain between 3 to 5 gram percent, and in ascitic fluid, whenever there is a cirrhosis, the ascitic fluid will be having less than 0.5 gram percent protein concentration. Whenever there is a peritonitis, neoplasia of abdomen, and any metastatic type of tumors may be present in the abdominal cavity, the plasma proteins is not consistent, but the ascitic fluid will be having more than 3 gram percent of the protein into the ascitic fluid. So this is considered as a inflammatory. So up to 3 will be the we can say the non-inflammatory, but beyond 3 it will be the considered as a inflammatory exudate, and inflammatory edema can be observed into the abdominal cavity. And this is the different conditions that we are going to diagnose based on the plasma proteins and the proteins which are present into the ascitic fluid. So while sending sample to the laboratory, we can send the blood as well as the parasynthites or the ascitic fluid which we can draw from the abdominal cavity. Now the another function or the another enzymes is the lactic dehydrogenase LDH. So LDH1 is specific for the cardiac muscle necrosis and ischemia. So LDH1 is considered as one of the important enzymes for the cardiac dysfunction and ischemia. Then LDH also increase in case of the pulmonary embolism. Then creatinine phosphokinase CPK is another enzymes, and it's having a very useful diagnostic values in case of the identification of the ischemic heart disease or the different heart disease. So these values are increased in case of acute myocardial infarction, and once there is a myocardial infarction, the CPK will be observed in blood circulation from 12 hours, and it can be increased or the peak level can be observed at 24 to 36 hours after ischemic injury to the myocardium. So first, the myocardium should have injury. After 12 hours of injury, we are observing this creatinine phosphokinase in slowly increase in the blood, and its peak can be observed between 24 to 36 hours. Then these values are become normal after 4 days of the ischemic injury of the myocardium. Now these values are become normal because of the fibrosis and phagocytosis of the whatever the cells are get damaged, it undergo the stimulation to the macrophages. Macrophages come in picture. They will start developing the connective tissue fibers. The connective tissue fibers are formed, fibroblasts are formed, and the necrosed portion of the myocardium will be removed by the phagocytosis. So because of that reason, after 4 days, the CPK levels will be come to the normal. So whenever we are suspecting any myocardial ischemia, myocardial necrosis, we should see the values consistently for 2 to 3 days, and once after 4th day, if the values become normal, then definitely we can say that the animal is suffering from the ischemic heart diseases. Now, whenever there is a normal to decrease values of the CPK can be observed in case of the congestive diseases of the liver and heart. Now here the little bit differentiation or comparison of the enzymes elevation has been given in the different myocardial conditions, infarctions and the problems of the myocardium. Now here the condition is a myocardial infarction. The SGOT values increase, SGPT is not affected. In case of myocardial infection, SGPT is not affected. The CPK will be increased, LDH will be increased, and LDH isozymes 1 and 2, type 1 and type 2 LDH will be high in case of myocardial infarction. Whenever there is a congestive heart failure, we can say the liver congestion, the values of SGOT will be increased, SGPT will be increased, but the CPK values will not be altered. So this value will be remain as it is. Now LDH value will be increased, and amongst that LDH isozymes, the LDH 4 and LDH 5 will be more in case of the congestive heart failure. Then muscle necrosis. Whenever there is a muscle necrosis observed, there is an increase in the SGOT. SGPT is not affected. The CPK will be increased. Then LDH will be increased, and especially 4 and 5 LDH isozyme will be increased. Then lung embolism. So whenever there is a fracture or any kind of embolism is there, that emboli is get accumulated into the lung capillaries. In that case, the SGOT, SGPT will not be altered. There may be the slight increase in the CPK values. The LDH will be increased, and amongst the LDH values, the LDH enzymes, the 2 and 3 enzymes are much more increased in case of the lung embolism. Now these are some of the conditions. You can see the cardiac myopathy by the parvovirus. So sometimes there is the ischemic necrosis or the necrosis of the myocardium can be observed because of the parvoviral infections. So these are the typical picture of the parvoviral infection. Then cardiomegaly can be observed in generally in case of older dogs. So that can be identified by the X-ray examination. So the dimensions of heart will be increased in that particular animal, and comparatively, the most of the areas by the heart is occupied in the thoracic cavity. Then myocardial ischemia will be look like this. So you can see, so whatever I was talking about the fibrosis, so the white color areas are nothing but the connective tissue proliferation little bit, and these are some of the ischemic areas. So such type of things can be observed after the ischemic necrosis of the myocardium, and ultimately it's quite dangerous, and sometimes there are death observed because of the ischemic necrosis of the heart. Then valvular diseases, some of the diseases can be observed into the walls of the heart. Especially you can see there is a observation of some valvular growth over here that lead to the cardiac insufficiency and may lead to the cardiac cirrhosis also. So here also you can see one of the picture having the thickness of the cardiac thickness of the walls, valvular disease, and ultimately that lead to the chronic venous congestion, cirrhosis, and ascites also. This is a picture of the same thing. Then hypertrophy of the heart, which is generally commonly observed in case of the older dogs. The most of the areas is occupied by the heart in the thoracic cavity. So these are the two different pictures of the increase in the size of heart. Hypertrophy, especially of the left chamber of the heart. Then sometimes tumors of the hearts are there. The capillary tumors, they generally hemangioma. They are observed somewhere around the heart. The hemangioma will be look like this. All these are the capillaries are proliferated. Then the case studies of the dog, clinical signs, German Shepherd dog, 8 years, anorexia, respiratory distress, dull, depressed, walking trouble, fatigue was there, exercise intolerance was there, and slight fluid feeling was observed in the abdomen, means ascites was there. The picture of the same. Okay, now the parameters of that dog. Now that dog was suffering from the filariasis. So filaria was there, and because of the filaria, there is a change, alterations in the number of filarias will alter the structures of the heart, myocardium, and ultimately there is a hypertrophy may be observed in such type of conditions. Then if you see towards this case, the hemoglobin is less, the total leukocytic count was little bit higher, so more than 17. So here 19.85, then platelet count was more, and collectively I could observe the filaria, direct demonstration of filaria was observed in there, and because of that you can see there is an intravascular coagulation defect also. So platelets are high, the utilization of platelet is much more, and the multiple organ failure is quite possible whenever there is an intravascular coagulation defects are there. If you see the protein concentration, it is 6.89, albumin 2.66, globulin 2.92, SGPT within normal, SGOT is quite high, alkaline phosphatase was more, bilirubin about normal, then creatinine 2.11, and blood urea nitrogen is quite higher. So these are the findings that observed in case of the this filarial parasite. Now here I will show the video of the same thing. You can see the filarial parasite is having the parasite moving into the blood picture. So this is the 10x magnification. So under simple microscope here we have, I don't especially not shoot this under the microscopic camera, I shoot under the only the phone. Once again I will play the same thing. You can see the movement, you can measure the size also, so it's quite bigger. So these are the immature stages of filaria can be migrated into the blood circulation. Okay, so after heart diseases, we should shift ourselves towards the different kidney dysfunctions. Now, different clinical signs of the kidney dysfunctions are the where there are very common clinical signs. There is an increased thirst and increased urine production, decreased appetite, loss of body weight, the bad breath, the vomiting is there, diarrhea is there, sore mouth is there, weakness is there, lack of energy, and increased sleeping. These are the clinical signs can be observed in the acute and little bit subacute type of kidney dysfunction. But in typical type of chronic renal failure, we can see the oral ulceration, constipation, wasting is there, the white and pale mucous membranes, then melena at terminal stages, pruritus is there, there is a severe itching at the multiple sites on the skin. And sometimes in the later stages, you can see the bone deformities. There may be the swelling of the bones, swelling of the joints, and we can see that renal ricket can be observed in some of the animals because of the chronic renal failure cases. So CRF, it's quite common in the older dogs. Then we are observing the oral ulcers, constipation, wasting, white pale mucous membranes, melena is there, pruritus, and bone deformities. So these are the clinical signs we are suspecting such cases as a the case of the kidney dysfunction. Now, what are the different kidney function tests? These are the especially blood urea nitrogen, creatinine. Then these only two are the important tests, and depending upon these two, we are giving our interpretation that whenever there is a elevation of both BUN and creatinine, that can be observed in acute as well as the chronic kidney dysfunction based on the pathophysiology of the etiological factor. So generally the acute kidney disease will be converted into the chronic one. So if the etiological factor is not removed, or whenever there is extensive kidney damage, extensive glomerulus damage is there, extensive tubular damage is there, ultimately the connective tissue proliferation is there, and acute condition will be converted into the chronic if the treatment is not given in a time. Then here some of the pictures of the same thing. There is a diffuse degeneration of the kidney and tubular necrosis. Here again you can see the extensive tubular necrosis and connective tissue proliferation can be observed into the interstitial spaces. Then acute nephritis, you can see there is a swelling of kidney and there is a severe inflammatory reaction can be observed into the cortex as well as the paracortex region and as well as the medullary portion of the kidney. So acute nephritis, it is characterized by this type of pictures. Then nowadays there are very common problems in rainy season. Leptospirosis. Leptospirosis can be observed in rainy season, as everybody knows. The rats are the reservoir for the leptospira. And if our pets or our patients are moving here and there in water, logging water, lagged water, or that whenever the flood type of situations are there, then there are chances of the infection of leptospirosis in case of our pets or our patients. Then in case of leptospira, you can see the intense yellow discoloration of mucous membranes, dark color urine is there, and beyond that there is a fever is there, and ultimately we are identifying such cases as a jaundice case and treating accordingly. But for the identification of the leptospira specifically, we should go for some special stains that is called as a Fontana stain. So that Fontana stains can be done on the urine only. Here though I have given the picture of the tissues, but this you can collect the urine and go for the Fontana stain, and you will ultimately found the number of the thread-like organisms. Those are black in or the brown coffee color type of organisms can be demonstrated on the sediment of the urine. Now another case study here I want to discuss with you. So just looking towards the dog, you can find that there is something which is related to the blood, or where there is a loss of blood. So this dog is suffering from the epistaxis. So here you can see the clinical signs dog. So 6-year depression, epistaxis was there. Then oral ulcerations, the pale mucous membranes. Those are the clinical signs were observed in that particular patient that you have already seen over here. The hemoglobin was 7.6. Then there is an increase in the total leukocytic count. The platelet count was quite less. So the platelet count was 0.74. So instead of 229, the count was the 0.74. Then the total protein count was 4.661. Albumin, which is less. Then the phosphorus values were much more. 9.21 was the phosphorus, creatinine was 2.66, and urea nitrogen was 32. So these are the typical case of the kidney dysfunction. Now the phosphorus is get increased because of the hyperparathyroidism, we can say. The reabsorption of the bone is there, and the excretion of phosphorus has been hampered, and that lead to the retention into the body, and because of that the bone deformities may be observed. So the phosphorus values are much more, the calcium values are less. So in that conditions we can see there is an increased phosphorus values, and if this condition goes further, then ultimately such type of patients will show the bone deformity. So that is a typical clinical signs of the renal rickets. So after that we can see the different thyroid functions, thyroid dysfunctions. So symptoms of hypothyroidism. So hypothyroid functions we are generally carried out by the different indications. So whenever we are suspecting this is a case of thyroid dysfunction, so why we are thinking of that? So the first thing is that there is a gain in weight may be there, hair loss and dry skin is there, constipation may be there, painful and prolonged menstrual cycle, or there may be the increase in the stress phase, then irritability, anxiety, depression, sometimes dog is not able to sleep, then increased blood pressure and cholesterol values can be increased. And this is most commonly observing type of clinical signs, that is a chill. Animal feel the less energy, and because of that there is a feeling of chillness. The animal suffering from the cold type of symptoms can be observed in case of the hypothyroidism. And increased fatigue, there is a, as the glucose metabolism is affected, the animals are become more fatigued by the small exercise too. So the chills is one of the chills and conversions are one of the important clinical findings or the indications for that we are suspecting this is the case of the thyroid dysfunction. So whenever there is a hypothyroidism, we can see the gain in weight is there, hair loss is there, dry skin is there, constipation, nausea is there, then painful menstrual period or the estrous cycle may be there, irritability is there, depression, and then less sleep is there, increased blood pressure, and chilling is there or cold feeling is there to the animal, and increased fatigue. So these are the clinical signs can be observed in case of the hypothyroidism. Then the hyperthyroidism, dryness of the cornea, then dryness of the eyes, the corneal erosions, pain in the eyes, lacrimation will be there. Then the heart rhythm, tachycardia, the thirst will be there. Then the urination will be there. Increased appetite, indigestion, diarrhea, abdominal pain could be there. Hypertrophy of the muscles, the tremors of muscle will be there. Then the tremors can be observed into the limbs. Then development of the osteoporosis also there. Then infertility, then sweating, then the irritability, anxiety, depressions, insomnia. These are the clinical signs can be observed in the hyperthyroidism. Now thyroid test and in its interpretation. So whenever there is a interpretation, if want to go, so basically when result come to us, we should see by which method the thyroxine or the T3, T4 has been carried out. So there are different methods of the identification of thyroid test. So the first thing is that the protein binding iodine. So one of the important tests. So protein binding iodine is to be estimated, and its value is 2.42 to 4.38 milligram per DL. Then T4, if it is measured by the competitive protein binding assay, then its value will be 1.4 to 2.1 mcg per DL. If the T4 values will be evaluated by the radioimmunoassay, then its value will be remain as 1.2 to 3 mcg per DL, and TSH will be remain 1.5 to 3 in case of the with the help of RIA method. So these are the thyroid function tests can be carried out with the laboratories. Then here I give some of the illustration or the short about the different biochemistry, serum biochemistry and its abnormalities, in which condition it is increased, in which condition it is decreased. Now blood urea nitrogen, it can be increased in the following conditions: the reduced renal flow, shock, then pre-renal, decrease in filtration, dehydration, then the renal disease, post-renal obstruction, secondary renal hyperparathyroidism, the high protein diet. In all these conditions, blood urea nitrogen will be increased. Then the decrease in blood urea nitrogen can be observed in case of the hepatic insufficiency, low protein diet, then malabsorption and overhydration. If the overhydration is there, again there are chances of the decrease in the blood urea nitrogen. Then creatinine will be increased in all these conditions. So whatever the conditions which are lead to the increase in the BUN, all these conditions will be lead to the BUN. Creatinine will be increased in the all these conditions. Those conditions will increase the BUN, except high protein diet. The high protein diet will not affect the creatinine level. So the reduced renal flow, shock, pre-renal infiltration, dehydration, renal disease, post-renal obstruction, secondary renal parathyroidism, all these conditions will lead to the creatinine, except the protein diet, high protein diet. But the decreased condition is not having any significance. So whenever there is a decrease in the creatinine value, there is no significance value for this. Then blood glucose levels will be increased in case of diabetes mellitus, pancreatitis, acute and chronic pancreatitis, convulsions, excitement, hyperadenocorticism, then steroids, infusion of the glucose salines, then chronic hepatic diseases, the hyperthyroidism, recent high carbohydrate meal. So sometimes animal is fed with the pet owner with the peda, generally peda or mithai is being given to the animal. So in such cases, there are chances of increasing glucose levels. Then the decrease in glucose levels can be observed in case of high insulin level. Whenever there is a tumor of insulin, tumor of the pancreas, then the insulin injections, the pregnancy toxemia, malnutrition, glycogen storage disease, hypoadenocortism and hypothyroidism. In all these conditions, there is a decrease in a glucose level in the blood. Then serum amylase will be increased in acute and chronic pancreatitis. Then renal dysfunction, intestinal obstruction, opiate administration, hyperadenocortism. Then there is no change by the or there is no significant condition in which there is a decrease in the amylase. Then serum lipase, the same conditions, the acute and chronic hepatitis, renal dysfunction, intestinal obstruction and opiate administration. Then serum bilirubin will be increased in the hemolysis, then liver disease, biliary obstructions, and decrease in serum bilirubin will be observed in case of the bone marrow depression anemia. Whenever the anemia is because of the bone marrow depression, maybe the radiations, maybe the chronic renal failure, in all these conditions there are chances of decrease in the total bilirubin in such conditions. Then cholesterol will be increased in the hyperthyroidism, diabetes, pancreatitis, liver and kidney dysfunctions or diseases, hyperadenocortism, then the administration of the ACTH. Then the cholesterol will be lower in conditions like the hyperthyroidism, low saturated fat in the diet. So these are the conditions which lead to the change in the different parameters. Then total protein count will be increased in case of the polycythemia, severe dehydration, acute phase reaction, antigen antibody reactions in the body. Then chronic infections, maybe especially the fibrinous type of inflammation infections. Then gammopathies. So gammopathies includes the tumors, especially of the lymphocytes, lymphosarcoma, and some of the liver diseases. In all these conditions, there are chances of the increase in the total protein count or the concentration. Decreased protein concentration can be observed in case of low production of the proteins, hepatopathy, especially fibrosis. Then malnutrition, low protein diet. Then the protein loss in the body cavities, as we had discussed. Whenever there is a peritonitis, or the metastatic tumors into the peritoneal cavity, there are chances of the loss of protein into the peritoneal cavity. Then the next factor is the calcium. The calcium will be increased in case of the lymphosarcoma. Then vitamin D toxicity and bone tumors of the lytic type. Whenever there is a lytic type of bone tumors are there, not marrow, only the bone tumors are there. Those are lytic type. In that conditions, there is an increase in the osteoclastic activity. There is an increase in the calcium levels. Resorption of the bone will be there. Then decrease in the calcium levels is because of the renal hyperthyroidism. Then low calcium in diet. Then acute pancreatitis with fat necrosis, pregnancy, lactation, and oxalate poisoning. So in all these conditions, there is a decrease in the calcium levels. And then phosphorus, in the same fashion, renal insufficiency will increase the phosphorus level. Vitamin D intoxication will increase the phosphorus level. High phosphorus diet, then the low calcium diet, then the hyperparathyroidism. In all these conditions, phosphorus values are increased, and the poor diet with the phosphorus and osteomalacia. In these conditions, there are increase into the phosphorus values. Then sodium will be more in case of the excess salt intake and dehydration, and decrease in sodium can be observed in conditions like renal disease, prolonged diarrhea, water intoxication, sodium deficient fluid for a longer period. Then potassium will be increased in case of the renal disease, acidosis, shock, and circulatory failure. Then the potassium get reduced in case of the diuretics, potassium deficient saline, vomiting, then diarrhea, or both together. Then insulin injection will decrease the potassium levels, and injection of the corticosteroids will be decreasing the potassium level. Then chlorides will be more in case of the metabolic acidosis, the respiratory alkalosis, hyperventilation, decreased excretion, then urinary tract obstruction, nephrosis, and excess of intake of the chlorides that lead to the increase in the chloride in the blood. Then decrease in chlorides can be observed because of the metabolic alkalosis, respiratory acidosis, hyperventilation, persistent vomiting, then intestinal obstruction, chronic renal disease. In all these conditions, there is a decrease in the chloride values in the blood. So these are the some of the things that has been from my side. So I will be happy to answer your question.
Hatfield Pharma Private Limited is a pharmaceutical company with its head office at Meerut. It was founded on 29 January 2019 with a vision to provide affordable and quality veterinary medicine to our pet parents. Hatfield Pharma is doing marketing of veterinary pharmaceuticals throughout India. In a small span of 1 year, we have launched 51 products in the veterinary pharma industry to serve our clients. In future 1 year, we are planning to have a product basket of more than 100 products. Hatfield is different from other veterinary pharma companies as we don't have distribution channel. We understand the latest needs of market, and for this reason we have adapted to online module of selling our drugs to field practitioners. We are serving our clients by providing the required medicines at their doorstep without any middleman. We directly collect orders online, mobile app, WhatsApp, telephonic from our end customers, and we deliver the required products to their doorstep through our nationwide logistic partners Blue Dart, DTDC, TCI Express. We are happy to announce that in our client list, most of the leading pet practitioners of India are included. To assure the unbreakable faith of our clients in our company products, we look after the quality of products, starting from selecting the raw material for our final products, aseptic precautions during manufacturing, and proper storage of finished products till supply to the end customers to ensure quality of products. We are happy to share that Hatfield Pharma has been recognized at various business platforms. Recently, an article on Hatfield Pharma has been published in the leading business magazine, Business Connect. One more milestone in the success story for Hatfield Pharma is that the managing director of the company, Dr. Rajneesh Tyagi, has been awarded Young Asian Entrepreneurs Award at Bangkok, Thailand on 7th February 2020. Our vision states Hatfield Pharma to be a commercially viable leading veterinary pharmaceutical company in providing quality products affordable to various sections of the pet owners society. Our endeavor is to be a front runner in innovation and quality in the veterinary pharma industry. We see a very bright future for our company as we are working in pet industry, which itself is growing at a higher rate, approximate growth of 20% annually. We are regularly working on the knowing of needs of our customers to serve them in a better way. We value your support to Hatfield Pharma and are very thankful to all of you. We look forward for a very strong and long business association between veterinarians and Hatfield Pharma. Thank you.